Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here today. It really is a privilege. I'm going to look a bit at web and application access and how that relates to people with disabilities. Just a little bit more about who Media Access Australia are. As introduced, we're a not-for-profit organisation. Some of the areas that we look at include access to cinema, TV, DVD, education and new media, and we look at things more from a mainstream focus. So if we can find a mainstream solution to access, that's generally the one we try to look at. In terms of me, thanks to the great introduction. I sort of have both professional experience in terms of my role at Media Access Australia and in being involved in the W3C, looking at things from the academic perspective, from my studies, and also that personal level. To share a little bit about my condition, I have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa. It's different for everyone that has it, but in my particular case, I have very narrow tunnel vision, so I can sort of just see my hands there. I have no night vision, so in dark or dimly lit areas, such as in some of this room at the moment, I have no vision. And I also have, it's a bit like when you look at the sun, you look away, you get that flashing in front of your eyes. I have that all the time. Now, although the prognosis for my condition is a little bit doom and gloom, to be honest, I've had an awesome life. And I'm originally from Perth, and the only issue that my friends in Perth feel I have is the fact that I follow a Victorian team in the AFL, which, they probably have a fair point. So today I'm going to look a little bit at, firstly, why should you care about the needs of people with disabilities? What is it that makes this such an important issue? Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of access. What exactly is it that makes this such a significant journey for people with disabilities, and what's going on at the moment? I'm going to talk a bit about the user perspective. How do people with disabilities use computers and the internet? And I'll be giving you a few demos on that front. Then going to look at the developer perspective. How do we make websites accessible? How do we make our applications accessible? I'm then going to look at some very specific things relating to the ABC, some of the really good things that are being done, and some of the things that can be improved. And to wrap up with, I'll share a bit more about how Media Access Australia can support your needs and really make a difference for people with disabilities. So first up, what exactly is new media? I'm the new media project manager, and one question I often get asked is, how do you define new media? From our point of view, new media is about the emergence of digital technologies, but in this day and age, it's actually swinging more to be about the convergence of digital technologies. A lot of the access solutions, we've now found how we can do things and make it most accessible, but some of those access solutions differ when we actually start combining a lot of products together. So one of the big things we want to try and find out is how can we improve access as things continue to converge into many things in one device. Generally, access includes usability as well, and usability is generally defined as not necessarily disability specific, but more about how we find what we're looking for, look and feel, and certainly navigation. Accessibility is specifically looking at the needs of people with disabilities, and although usability and accessibility are different, as you can appreciate, if the mainstream population can't easily get to something, then that's going to be an accessibility issue as well. I often try to put forward a few arguments as to why accessibility is important for people who don't have a disability. And these are the four main arguments I try to put forward. The first is the moral or the social case, and this is certainly my personal favourite. We live in a global community. I think the internet being a global medium, we have a certain obligation to try and support each other in that access to information. However, education is also very important. One of the big things we have at the moment is that there's often a poverty cycle that occurs. People don't get the same educational opportunities, find it difficult to get access to a job, and the cycle continues. If we make sure that educational online learning websites are accessible, the media plays a huge role in that. If we can address things like employment websites, we can break that poverty cycle, and I think that's a great case for looking at accessibility. But sometimes I can't convince people on moral or educational grounds, so at that point I swing to the almighty dollar and try to put forward the case that if 1 in 5 Australians have some form of permanent disability, then that's a lot of the population that might be missing out on purchasing a particular product online, and that can often be a good motivator. But if I can't convince people on any of those options, the threat of getting sued can often be a strong motivator in terms of looking at accessibility issues. We have a legal precedent in Australia. The Sydney Organising Committee for the Olympic Games was successfully sued by a blind man named Bruce Maguire over ticketing issues. And because of that, in Australia we're particularly interested in the legal case. Recent developments overseas, Target USA, and just a week ago, HSBC in the US had to address accessibility issues for their financial institutions. So the issue of accessibility from a legal perspective is always on the news. Just a little bit of an overview as to how we got to where we are now. In the 90s, the internet became something that we all use and found a really vital resource in terms of information and communication. But for people with disabilities, it became so much more. It became the independent access to information, and I can't stress that enough. To give you an example, to use myself, 15 years ago, if I wanted to find a book in a library, I'd certainly need help. I'd need help to get to that library to start with. I need someone to help me find the book I'm looking for. That book would then have to be converted into Braille or large print or some other format to make it accessible to me. And that would be quite a time-consuming and difficult process. Now, with the right support of assistive technology, I can actually access everything and do it myself. And that independence is what has really made the internet just so important to people with disabilities.